So thank you everybody for joining. Very good to have you all attending and showing an interest in the Strategic Innovation Fund webinar. So yeah, good morning. This event is being run by the West Midlands Smart Energy Systems Cluster, which is funded by the West Midlands Growth Company. My name is Tony Eckott. I'm the Supply Chain Advisor at the Energy Systems Catapult, and I'm the lead for the Smart Energy Systems Cluster. So during the event, please, any comments you'd like, please add into the chat, any comments or questions, and we'll deal with those as we're going along or potentially at the end. Please keep your cameras off and your microphones off. And just to let you all know, we will be recording this session. Talking of which, have we got it on record? Have we, Mario? Can you do that for me, please? So yep. We have a great selection of speakers today from various backgrounds, giving their take on the Strategic Innovation Fund. First up, we have Nathaniel Bottraw, Senior Advisor at the Catapult. Then we have Cara Finn, the Innovation and Strategy Leader from National Grid DSO. Then we have Kate Ashworth, Head of Energy Infrastructure at Energy Capital, West Midlands Combined Authority. And then we will be moving into an interactive workshop, which is designed to explore innovation challenges and looking for opportunities and identify potential SIF project ideas. That's going to be run by Andy Clark, the business lead for Place within the Catapult. Okay, so for you, so firstly, an introduction to the West Midlands Smart Energy Systems Cluster and the Energy Systems Catapult. Myself and the team involved with the cluster are acting on behalf of the West Midlands Growth Company, and we all work for the Energy Systems Catapult. For those of you that aren't familiar with the Catapult, this is a brief introduction of the Energy Systems Catapult. Our mission is to accelerate clean energy innovation. So we help innovators launch new products and services. We give SMEs support. We deliver trials and demonstrations. And this is all about trying to help innovation in the energy system area. So over to the cluster. Why are we doing this? This is a critical sector. Energy systems is a critical sector for UK energy transition. And the West Midlands is placed well to be the lead region. The sector is in the West Midlands Growth Plan as a key focus. So we're working to lead a cluster to bring together regional capability on behalf of the West Midlands Growth Company. So this gives us our vision, which is to establish the West Midlands as the business-led centre of excellence for the design and application of smart energy systems in the UK. So, what is a smart energy system? That's the definition on the screen there. The idea of this, we've left the definition broad because we want to be inclusive of all innovations in this wide and varied sector. So this next slide demonstrates the regional strength of the West Midlands to form this cluster and to develop going forward. So on the map there, you have all of the anchor companies, the large organisations involved in energy systems. Then you've got the supporting infrastructure. Then we have our research and innovation, the universities, on that side, the innovation centres. And then we have the smart energy systems businesses, all the clean tech that's there, the SMEs that are developing these products and moving forward. So as backup for the cluster, we have the advisory board. This is the advisory board here. The advisory board is a cross-section of the organisations I've just shown you on the map, right from our major organisations through to our universities and then to our SMEs there as well. So as being part of the cluster, we have these events on a regular basis going through the year. So this is upcoming events that we've got. This first event, the virtual event Strategic Innovation Funding, which is the one we're on today. We then have an advisory board in September. Then we're going to have an in-person event towards the end of September. That's going to be working with Energy Capital. So that's connecting customers and buyers to businesses. That's going to be based at the Millennium Point. Then we're going to have a follow-up virtual event in November time, and that's going to be an academic showcase, which is going to be matchmaking the capabilities in smart energy systems with academia. And there's plenty of academia in the area to support this cluster. Another cluster advisory board in December, and then also on a regular basis, we will be releasing communication showing the funding opportunities that are out there in the public domain, just to make sure that people are aware of what's available. So how do you join this cluster? If you're not already a member, I know a lot of you are members, but if you're not a member, what we ask you to do is drop an email to Samaya Hussain. She's on the call today, and she will get you registered. And then following on from that, you will be involved in all the communications going further forward. And then if you want additional information, there's a link there as well. So all these slides will be released at the end of the day, and you can all see that from there. So I will now pass you over to our first speaker. That's Nathaniel Bottrell. He's a senior advisor for whole systems and networks within the Energy Systems Catapult. Nathaniel.
Great, thanks, Tony. Great, thanks, Tony. Next slide, please. So I'm here just to give a brief overview of Network Innovation Funding and focusing on the Strategic Innovation Fund. I'm aware that some of you may already have quite deep knowledge of the fund, so this could be likely to be a repeat of that information. But for those that are not aware, I hope this is a brief overview into what the fund is and how the fund is to be delivered over the RIIO-3 price control period. Now, I've not really explained this in the slides, but network operators are regulated by Ofgem in price control periods. RIIO-3 started in April this year for the NESO gas transmission and distribution and transmission electricity network operators. The electricity distribution network operators, their price control period, which is RIIO-ED3, will start in April 2028. But distribution network operators are eligible for the SIF Innovation Fund, and the updates to SIF that occurred this year are relevant to them. On this slide, I just wanted to highlight that distribution network operators have two pots of funding available to them to deliver innovation projects. The first is called Network Innovation Allowance, and this is a kind of fund that's allocated as part of the price control for distribution network operators to spend on innovation that they view as absolutely critical to their business. There's less oversight from Ofgem on how these or on the topics of these projects, and there's kind of network operators have flexibility to deliver research and development projects that are needed to benefit their network. The Strategic Innovation Fund, which I'm going to focus the rest of this presentation on, that is a competitive process that is managed by Innovate UK on behalf of Ofgem, and Innovate UK assign independent assessors during the application process and make recommendations to Ofgem on whether to approve or to not approve projects which are submitted into the competition, and then Ofgem will make the final decision on if the project is to be funded. So there's a much higher bar for the Strategic Innovation Fund, and Ofgem and Innovate UK are really looking for transformational projects which will be integrated into business as usual at the end of the project. So it's super important that these projects realise the commercial, environmental and social benefits that they are set out to deliver. Next slide, please. The Strategic Innovation Fund was designed back in 2020 as part of the RIIO-2 price control period and has undergone a number of changes. And likewise for RIIO-3, there's been a significant update. In general, the SIF follows an agile type of approach where there's a small discovery project, which is designed to be a rapid feasibility study, has a small budget of 200k allocated and is delivered over a period of 3 to 5 months. And this really here is just to kind of test the idea, kick it around a little bit, and I suppose at a low risk to the innovation pot, really identify, is this a great idea to take forward, or are there lots of barriers, or are the benefits not going to be realised? So the idea is that there are many discovery projects that are spun up with lots of different ideas, and we then start to kind of filter down as we go through the subsequent stages. The stage after the discovery is called alpha. This is where consortiums will develop a proof of concept. Oh, I think there's a little bit of background noise on the line. The budget is bigger, project is longer, so consortiums or projects have up to 650k budget, 6 to 8 months to deliver the proof of concept. And again, it's just kind of moving on to that kind of next stage where kind of following on from the feasibility study to start to test the idea and to understand, is the idea going to be successful if it were to be rolled out as business as usual. Following a successful proof of concept, the projects then move on to large scale demonstrations within the beta phase. And this is where kind of budgets increase and the time durations increase. So projects are in the millions, typically ranging from 5 million up to, I think the largest in RIIO-2 was 33 million pounds, one of the gas network projects, and they're typically up to 5 years. And Ofgem is really looking to see that the proof of concept is taken to that next level and starting to be tested across the network license area to really kind of identify and show the benefits that can be unlocked from delivering that innovation idea. And for RIIO-3, there is a new phase that has been added. So this phase wasn't there previously, but from this year, Ofgem have added a deployment phase because they realised that one of the barriers is that when the beta projects come to an end, there might still be some kind of challenges in transforming the idea into business as usual. So the deployment is there, starting with a budget of 500k to really help network operators take innovation and integrate it into business as usual. Next slide, please. So one of the, I suppose, challenges that we get from network operators when we approach them to submit innovation ideas is that, oh, this idea has been delivered before, or have you checked this project? And so my advice to everyone here is to, if you have a great innovation idea, please go and check them across the different portals which have been made available. So each of these portals will kind of showcase the innovation project. So the Energy Networks Association has their Smarter Energy Networks portal, which is the central hub for electricity network operator innovation projects. This ranges from NESO to transmission to distribution. And much of the information about these projects is uploaded to this page, including who to contact if you have further questions. And then for gas network innovation projects, these are kind of generally located on the Future Energy Networks innovation portal. So any gas ideas that you might have, please head over to this site. It's also worth pointing out that the distribution network operators will also have their own innovation pages with many of their innovation projects kind of listed, along with potentially more information, more documents about what the project was set out to achieve, has achieved, and I recommend using this information to really identify if your innovation idea has already been delivered before. Next slide, please. So for this year, there have been some changes to SIF, as well as the deployment fund being added. The innovation challenges are being held for the length of the price control period. So we at the Energy Systems Catapult, we worked with Innovate and Ofgem last year to identify and set these innovation challenges, convening over 250 people from across the energy system. And so these 5 challenges are now open and live and available to accept network innovation ideas. And the next few slides, I'm just going to go into a little bit more detail about each one of these challenges. So challenge 1 is really focused on non-domestic connections, and it's looking to kind of identify innovations that mean that strategic new innovation sites can be energized and operational within 6 months. Now, I'm sure we're all aware that when we approach network operators for an increased or for a new connection, that we're put into the demand connection queue, and as that queue grows, so the timelines for connections increase. So this innovation challenge here is really trying to address that problem that we are seeing and really try to identify solutions which can mean that electricity network connection is no longer a barrier. And there's an emphasis in this challenge on cross-vector planning and delivery. And so solutions could consider solutions directly for electricity networks, potentially gas and hydrogen infrastructure. How might we solve industrial heat requirements? Are there any interactions with water and wastewater systems that might potentially kind of save energy or save the power or reduce the power requirement for the electricity network and enable demand to connect quicker? And then how can we integrate distributed generation and storage assets? Next slide, please. So challenge 2, this is focused on how can we build 50% faster and 20% cheaper. And it also covers network maintenance, kind of recognizing that it can take a long time to go from needs identification through to delivery and commissioning. And at the moment, for the transmission network operators, you're looking at up to 14 years from when the need for new transmission infrastructure is identified and for when that infrastructure is commissioned. So if we are going to rapidly decarbonize and invest in the electricity network, then we need to significantly reduce this time. And this can only be solved by looking at the barriers that are created right across the supply chain, right across the system, from planning through to delivery. Next slide, please. Challenge 3 is very much focused on domestic low carbon technology connections. So how can we make sure that domestic users can connect their solar PV, their battery storage systems, EV chargers, heat pumps, including any kind of vehicle to grid from electric vehicles, rapidly and instantly without the network operator becoming a barrier to these connections. I know that at the moment there's a standard called G99 that means that if your connection is under 16 amps, then it's connect and inform. But as soon as you start to look to bring technologies together, so for example, connecting solar PV and battery storage, you can very easily exceed these limits, and then you're required to apply for a connection. So how can we remove that application process while still ensuring that the electricity network can operate safely and securely? Next slide, please. So challenge 4, this one is focused on microgrids and resilience. So challenge 4 is really looking to the innovators to ask the question, can we create a self-healing energy system which can autonomously reconfigure and island any part of the network? So the idea is that, for example, if one use case might be if you have a large storm moving through the network. Previously, we've seen that storms can cause a lot of damage to electricity network infrastructure and has caused outages of up to a week for some customers. So if you could island part of the network, could you enable the network to operate during and after a storm when other parts of the network have been damaged or could you reconnect customers much faster by using Ireland and whilst you wait for network repairs to be able to then reconnect them back to the main grid. So I think there's going to be a lot of focus on local renewable generation, battery storage systems, distributed energy resources, and potentially decentralized gas and biomethane assets. Next slide, please. So challenge 5, this is focused on local balancing and is likely to be needed to unlock challenge 4. So challenge 5 is looking at is there a better way of operating the energy system that we have today? At the moment, NESO operates they balance supply and demand and make sure that frequency stays within limits. And NESOs, as we start to install more distributed resources, then there's a potential for assets which are connected deep inside the distribution network to then support with system balancing. For example, charging EVs at a time when there's lots of generation available on the system, or using vehicle to grid to export when perhaps supply is limited. So like yesterday, when the eclipse occurred, Octopus were asking people to use less electricity because they were forecasting that there could be potential reduction in supply as the solar output and potentially wind output dropped off from the system. So and as NESO, if they have to kind of increase the number of assets that they need to control, it's become an ever complex problem for them. So could local balancing be a solution which kind of enables us to deal with the complexity of having many more assets in the system that can support balancing and really to unlock the value that these assets could provide to the system? Next slide, please. And this is here is my last slide. So I just wanted to kind of quickly announce that SIF is a competitive process managed by Innovators, and there are 12 eligibility criteria that SIF projects will all be assessed against. And it's also really important to say that only licensed network operators, so that's NESO, gas and electricity transmission and distribution license holders, can lead these projects, but they are required to partner with the correct stakeholders in order to deliver the projects. So we're not ourselves able to put projects forward. They all need to be led by the licensed network operator and also meet these 12 conditions. So first one being that the project must address the innovation challenge that has been set by Ofgem. There needs to be whole system benefits or the potential to deliver a net benefit to customers and or the whole system. They must be innovative, which is why it's really important to do your background research and look at the portals and the innovation pages on the network operator sites to really test to see has the project been delivered before or what projects are your innovation idea building on. Projects cannot disrupt the competitive markets, so they need to support or be consistent with these. Projects must be innovative, novel, and risky. Ofgem are not looking for kind of incremental ideas or ideas that should be business as usual. This is the funding is made available to cover the risk of the innovation idea might bring. Number 6 around stakeholders is, as mentioned earlier, projects must include participation from a range of stakeholders, which kind of gives us the opportunity to get involved and deliver our innovation ideas to benefit network operators. This is bill payers' money that is being used. So anybody that pays an electricity or gas bill will be contributing to the innovation pot. So therefore, it's really important that projects are delivered and provide value for money and must be costed competitively. And also, it's worth noting that Innovator K require that all partners provide at least a 10% contribution to the project, which then supports the value for money criteria. Number 8 is around project management, that all projects must be well thought through, have a robust methodology, and I've seen many projects not be funded because the project plan has not been as well thought through as potentially it could have been. So this is potentially quite a stumbling block for projects. Number 9 is around existing innovation, that projects must build on how or projects must demonstrate how they build on existing innovation. So again, kind of looking at the portals, looking at the information that has already been published. Number 10, projects need to meet customer needs. At the end of the day, the energy system needs to work for the end user of that energy, and therefore innovation ideas must be kind of designed with their needs in mind. For number 11, all projects are required to share knowledge, and that knowledge is shared on these portals that I talked about earlier. So the projects need to make sure that insights, outcomes are accessible to relevant stakeholders, and including any open data that can be shared that the project generates. And importantly, to remove the kind of one of the critiques of the SIF fund is that there needs to be a deployment pathway. So projects need to show a scalable pathway for how their innovation idea can be delivered as business as usual, and how the innovation will achieve impact.
Okay, thank you, Nathaniel. A very in-depth, detailed review of SIF there. If anybody has any questions, please put them in the chat. And if you want more information on any of that, then I'm sure Nathaniel will be able to support on that. So next up, I would like to welcome in Cara Finn, Innovation and Strategy Leader for the National Grid DSO.
Hi everybody, it's nice to be with you here today. I'm Cara Finn, Innovation Strategy Manager at National Grid DSO, and I want to talk to you a little bit about how National Grid is evolving its approach to innovation in line with the new SIF challenges that we've just run through. So if you don't mind moving us on, please, Tony. And again, okay, so this is just a little bit of run through of what I'm going to cover over the next few minutes. So as I mentioned, I'm here representing the DSO. So I just want to spend a little bit of time kind of highlighting that and explaining how that fits within the wider National Grid structure. And then how the role of the DSO, oh, sorry, do you mind to just keep on the agenda for me for 1 second? And then how that role of the DSO shapes the way we approach innovation. Then going to top on a little bit around how the new SIF challenges are affecting that and what we're looking to change. And then finally, just want to highlight a few routes to engage that you currently exist, just in case people aren't aware with them. And also, you know, all of this needs to be shaped through consumer feedback. So an option to engage with us there at the end as well. So thanks, Tony, if you could bring us on. And again, so National Grid Electricity Distribution. We are the largest of the electricity distribution networks within England and Wales. We operate across 4 different regional areas. I know we're here talking about the West Midlands today, but just wanted to highlight the scale of the areas that we cover. Some of the icons there just bring that to life a little bit in terms of the number of customers we serve and the size and scale of our operation. But the key thing in terms of today's conversation to really bring out of this is just recognising how different each of those regions are, and the challenges that the communities and industries face in each of those different regions shape how we adapt innovation. The issues faced on the network down in the deep southwest, you know, might be very different. It might be around kind of adapting to climate change and storm risk, whereas in the East Midlands, you know, in much more populated areas, we might be focusing more on retrofitting and adaptation to low carbon tech. So just by the nature of the areas we cover, we have to have quite a wide range as to the innovation projects that we're looking at. If you could move on again, great. So within National Grid Electricity Distribution, there's 2 key elements to that. There's the DNO and the DSO. So some of you may already be aware of this, but just for those who aren't, just want to kind of break this out, because when you read through the wider SIF information packs, you'll see those 2 terms being used a lot, and the 2 different roles that they represent again shape the way we engage with people on innovation. So I've called out just 3 different activities, same activities, but different approaches based on whether the role is split across the DNO or DSO. So for example, running the network. So within the DNO, they're very much focused on the core engineering, they're maintaining all the assets, and they're building new assets and making sure we've got the right equipment for today. What we're looking at in the DSO is making sure we've got everything right for today, but also what do we need for tomorrow? What is that future looking piece? How can we understand what our long-term customer needs are going to be and make sure that we're planning and adapting the network with that in mind? Then when you look at connections, so the National Grid, the DNO, sorry, is very much looking at the actual live connections. They work with the customers and make sure we get the connections through. Within DSO, what we're looking at is how can we facilitate that by using different models? So how can we increase our ranges of flexibility products so that people can find alternative routes to connect quicker where grid reinforcement is needed? And then final example around our control room. So the DNO operates the network in real time. They run our control room in every moment. Within the DSO, we manage that up to real time. So we're looking at that kind of from long term ahead right up to very near real time before we hand over to the DNO. So every one of the distribution networks will have this sort of element between DNO and DSO. How they split it is different. Within National Grid, within the West Midlands, we have functional separation between those two areas. So we still work really, really closely, recognising that we can't deliver the work we need to do if we don't. But that functional separation allows us to make sure that we never lose sight of our customer interests. So the DNO's role is about making sure that the decisions we make, customer outputs and customer requirements are at the forefront of all of those. So if I can move you on to the next bit. So that shapes a little bit about DSO and what we're looking at when we come to innovation. So this slide is specific for DSO. And there's 5 key pillars that shape the way we innovate with people. The first 4 of those, I'm just going to run through each of those quickly. So there's the DSO strategic roadmap, the 2026 version you can get online. Simply Google that title and it will come straight up for download. And what that covers is all of the business commitments that we had through the ED2 period, what we promised we would do, what we have done, and what we're looking to do in the remainder of that ED2 space. So a lot of that is looking around innovation, largely to do with IT and D, and sort of more smaller scale incremental changes that will enable more longer term adaptations. Then the next 3 are around preparing for ED3. So as mentioned earlier on the call, our new price control period is coming shortly. And there's a few key elements that are different from ED2. So the first one of those is the build and flex philosophy. So in ED2, we were very much focused on flex. And now we're adapting that slightly to a more build and flex. So we're still trying to establish flexibility options so that we can make sure that any cost of network reinvestment and network reinforcement is in the most crucial places. So our innovation strategies are around trying to broaden those range of flexibility products and services to enable that to happen. And then the next 2 are very new elements that have come out in the ED3 discussions. The first one around enhanced coordination. And that breaks down into 3 key elements that all underpin basically that we can demonstrate and prove that we are listening to the people in our areas, so that we have a wide range of stakeholders that we're interacting with. We have a clear communication plan about how and when we're going to interact with those stakeholders. And then we have a way to visualize and capture that information so that all of the relevant people who need to see it are able to access how that information has shaped our network planning. All of those, well, most of those, all of those we already do, some of them to varying extents, and we're going to build on those in ED3, and all of them we very thoroughly support the decision to include those. The final element with the ED3 changes is around expanded roles for the DSO. So at the moment being negotiated is a discussion of there's 8 roles. Some of them are an enhancement of roles that existed in ED2, and some of them are completely new. So that is less mature at the moment, and that's still being worked through as to what those new roles might mean, which ones will definitely come to the DNO and DSO, and then how we will manage those. So they're all shaping how we're approaching innovation and what we think we need to do. Those 4 are very much focused on our regulatory roles and what we need to be providing to our customers to be the best network operator we can be. And then they're all underpinned by the SIF innovation challenges that we've just talked through now, which are more longer term and wider industry ranging challenges in innovation areas. So that pivots me over to what's going to change. What are we trying to do differently? So these challenges are still reasonably new, so our updates to our innovation strategies are still being worked through, and we will share more and announce it publicly once it's completed. But what we're trying to do is adapt our approach so that we have that more forward-looking view from those SIF challenges. Do you mind us moving on to the next slide, please? So, aware that a lot of the innovation we've been doing so far is bound by the price control periods, and by nature of that is slightly more incremental in its approach. The new long-term challenges, the way the new challenges are designed, gives us a lot more certainty, a lot more clarity and long-term vision, that we can really get into the big and bold issues that are affecting the whole industry. If you could move us on one more, please. These slides are slides that were presented at our innovation event in London last month, so some of you may have seen them before. But at that event, we committed to the fact that our innovation strategy is going to be really closely aligned to those SIF challenges. We think that it gives us a better route to connect across the whole of industry. And the way that they're designed, it gives us a lot of space to be really ambitious and making sure that we're addressing the big challenges. And big challenges need big ideas. So the way we're looking at this is we're trying to cut across those 5 challenges that we've just run through and trying to find key themes that run across all of them. So 3 that are highlighted there around data and AI, autonomy and automation, and safety and sustainability. Now, because these are really big challenges, the next step we've tried to look at is, okay, well, breaking that down to pathways, and how are we actually going to achieve these before our 2030s timelines. And so with a lot of interaction with different stakeholders, we've come up with this sort of high-level breakdown. So for each of the challenge areas, we've looked at what National Grid electricity distribution's approach needs to be, and what we need to achieve to facilitate our role in that innovation challenge, and then how we're going to build that out into those themes. And that's the step that's happening at the moment. So for each of these approaches, we're now building them out into pathways that get into the next level of detail down, and will help vocalize the areas of innovation that we're most focused on looking at. And if I could move you on to the next slide. The final thing that I want to highlight, aware that this work is still, like I say, very much still in progress, but we're really keen to change the way we're working with everybody as well. So our new innovation director has set up an innovation advisory board. So we're trying to make sure that we have really influential members from across industry that are top of their game in different areas of technology and capability. And having them acting on an advisory board for us will really help make sure that we are making sure that we're holding ourselves to account and staying at that cutting edge of innovation and capability in all that we do. And making sure that when we're talking innovation, it's not just something that's new to us, but it's new to industry. We also want to change the way we interact with everybody and make ourselves more approachable and easier to engage with. So the final slide that I have for you, if you don't mind moving us on, where we've gone through that very quick, is the routes that we currently have. So perhaps some of you haven't used these yet, but I really encourage you to do so. So we have an innovation newsletter that shares everything that we're doing. That's published usually once a quarter, and it lets you know what projects we're working on, how they're progressing, and any projects that are being rolled out into BAU. It's a great way to hear about what we're up to. And then we also have a page dedicated towards proposals. So the second QR code you can see there will take you to one of our web pages. It's got 2 different routes on it to engage with us. One is if you already have a robust proposal that you want to submit. It's got a web form that helps you work through the information we need to know and share that with us, and they all get reviewed by our innovation team. But then also aware that some people might still have quite a new idea that they really want to talk through a little bit more and make sure that it is addressing a network challenge. And in which case, using this form, you can also arrange a call with our innovation team, and they can talk you through what our processes are and how to work through it with us in more detail. So if you haven't used those, please do. And then the final one is new for today. It's just a QR code there around feedback. So anything that you've heard today, if there's anything that you think we could do even better, or things that you would like us to include in our new strategy, now's the time to shape it. So if you could please give us any feedback through that QR code, I'd be very grateful. Thank you very much.
Cara, very informative to understand how the National Grid are driving innovation. Really good. If you haven't managed to get those QR codes snapped while they're on the screen now, they'll be following up after the event there, so you can get them there. But yeah, please give the feedback and take note of those. Right, next I would like to welcome in Kate Ashworth, the Head of Energy Infrastructure at Energy Capital Welsh. Sorry, I'm living down in Wales, so I got the West Midlands Combined Authority. Over to you, Kate.
Thanks, Tony. Hi, everyone. As Tony says, I'm Kate Ashworth. My job title is Head of Energy Infrastructure at Energy Capital. So if we can move on to the next slide, and probably the following one as well, because I think I had a title slide in there. Lovely. So Energy Capital is the energy team of the West Midlands Combined Authority, but we also represent a wider regional partnership, recognising that it's not down to local government to affect the change that we want to see. So I just really wanted to kind of pull this up as a bit of clarity. Not every energy team has its own branding in Energy Capital, so it can cause a bit of confusion, but it is really important that we recognise that actually there is a much wider strategic move here for the West Midlands, and actually we need everyone working together in order to achieve that. We have just transition at the heart of what we do. We think that ultimately we need to make sure that we are working together collaboratively and coordinating, particularly in the planning sense, in order to make sure that those that are already disadvantaged don't become more disadvantaged through the transition. And importantly for this audience, it's also about thinking about how to create a thriving market for clean tech innovation, which services the needs of our place. If we can move on to the next slide. So in order to really articulate what our place needs, we have a couple of strategy documents, which I think really are helpful in outlining why the West Midlands is kind of uniquely positioned to be able to kind of support that clean tech, that thriving clean tech market, as I referred to. Firstly, we have the West Midlands Regional Energy strategy. If we could go back one, Tony, sorry, while I cover off the strategies. Yeah, that's great. So we have the West Midlands Regional Energy Strategy, which essentially outlines why the West Midlands is uniquely positioned. As I said, it's fundamentally in the middle of the country and historically was right at the heart of energy generation. Now we have in the transition that we have to clean power, which we very much support, we've got an almost complete inversion of our energy system, and a lot of the energy generation is now moving to the coast around offshore wind farms and also around large land holdings for large-scale solar generation. And ultimately that puts us at the end of the wire in terms of where that clean energy is coming from, and therefore we need to think very differently as a region, and that leads us essentially to a strategy around smart energy and making sure we as a region we will always be a net energy importer, but we need to make sure that we are making the most of every single electron and other energy vectors as well, in terms of how we move those around our region, how we use those, and that's essentially led us to our strategic position. If we can move on then, Tony, to the next slide. So my role in that as Head of Energy Infrastructure is ultimately I have a remit around the kind of underlying pipes and wires and making sure we are bringing together data and insights and looking to work with partners to plan really effectively about how we are going to do that. And we have twin goals, really. One, very importantly, around our kind of net zero targets. We have declared a climate emergency and we have set ourselves a target of decarbonisation by 2041. So that definitely helps us kind of sharpen the pen around our activities in that space. But also importantly around clean inclusive growth. So making sure that our region is supporting the kind of national ambition around growth, making sure that is inclusive and brings everyone with us as well. So how we are looking at that in terms of our programme areas is particularly within my remit is thinking about local area energy planning as a mechanism for helping us essentially know our place and bring those data and insights together. It's particularly focusing on heat decarbonisation as a particular focus, because that is an area where there is likely to be radical change and will have big impacts in terms of how our energy infrastructure is served going forward. But also around smart local energy systems, as I say, coming back to our strategy around how we are utilising that energy in our region in a much smarter way. So if I move us on, I was particularly invited to present to you today on our experience of being part of a SIF funded project. So we were fortunate enough to be working with National Grid and other partners on SIF funding projects. I wanted to kind of highlight Project Pride, which is planning regional infrastructure in a digital environment. So very much kind of aligned with future SIF priorities as well, but this came through a previous round. And essentially, I wanted to kind of highlight how positive an experience it had been, not least because of the consortia that we are part of. You know, there's a real kind of alignment of motivations in terms of wanting to improve the kind of processes and assets that we had between us to work together more effectively. So Pride is essentially underpinned by a digital platform, which is produced by Advanced Infrastructure, and that has helped us essentially to help visualize, but also do some outline kind of what if scenarios. What if certain developments came forward? What if we decided to put solar in certain areas, or EV charging, or some of the other low carbon technologies that we want to put forward? It essentially acts as a communication tool to be able to kind of help plan together. So the objectives are around essentially data alignment between ourselves as local governments and networks, and we are really testing that those linkages and how we can kind of streamline that with a digital first approach. But it also is looking to test how we effectively take on that democratic mandate for decision making and information flow, particularly in the advent of Regional Energy Strategic Planner, which is really exciting opportunities for kind of a regional voice in that energy governance piece, recognising that previously energy system decisions were very much made kind of within its own sphere, but actually in this new future around net zero, we're going to have to work collaboratively and making sure we're taking account of lots of different planning sphere, not least spatial planning or transport or all the other things that we're trying to do in places. So it's really about kind of providing a digital solution to underpin some of those decision-making processes, to provide the consistency and really kind of streamline that data exchange as well. I can move us on to the next slide. So if we click through the bullets here, that's lovely. So essentially our role in this, which is I would say a bit of an unusual one in a kind of tech focused innovation challenge, which is essentially around network benefits, but it's to try and work out how to have that informed decision making process when we are coming to that planning process. And I think I just wanted to highlight this as a opportunity. So the SIF stream is very explicit about wanting to bring whole systems benefits into those spaces, and yes, a lot of that will be tech solutions. It might be widgets, it might be other kind of components of that wider system, but I think we also need the kind of softer systems and processes in place in order to make sure that those impacts are in place and are effective, essentially. So this was as part of Project Pride, we have developed these kind of governance systems, as I say, underpinned by that digital tool that we now have, which is about how we feed into that system planning process. And if we go to the next slide, we can see how timely this process has been, because actually in the advent of Regional Energy Strategic Planner, a lot of these governance processes are coming through, but ultimately we need to work out how to engage with those processes effectively. So all of those groups and decision-making processes and kind of protocols that we had set up will dovetail very nicely, we think, into the kind of work that RESP is doing. And RESP is very much as much learning from us as we are learning in that space as well, about how those kind of local and regional interactions around energy works. And ultimately, it makes those decision-making processes more informed and more impactful going forward. And we are looking to test that through that process. So we really welcome this project as a kind of real kind of helpful step change in terms of how we engage effectively in that space. So if I move on to the next slide, so just in conclusion of terms of the kind of insights from the kind of our current SIF project delivery kind kind of experience is really understanding kind of the network strategic priorities. So making sure that we are aware SIF is very much targeted at, you know, providing network benefits, whether that's electricity or gas, but it needs to be a regulated utility in that lead bid role. So CAR has done a fabulous job of kind of working through the kind of, you know, National Grid's priorities and other networks are available, but making sure that the projects align really well to are really clear and explicit around those kind of network benefits. But secondly, it's about understanding each individual own partner's own strategic benefits. So we have a track record in Energy Capital of taking on innovation projects where it helps us gather the evidence base for, you know, better decision-making processes going forward. So we won't necessarily take on innovation projects unless it fits strategically with our kind of frameworks, and that's really important, not only for kind of, you know, at that project development stage, but also then when you're in the project as well, making sure that your motivations are really aligned. And that brings us on to the third point, really, about kind of finding the right consortia, finding the people that you want to work with. These projects can be very intense, and rightly so. You know, we are really kind of pushing barriers here, but making sure that we're kind of open and honest up front about our own motivations, our own skill sets, capabilities, etc., what we can bring to the party, and then, you know, finding a really exciting kind of new set of people to work with in this space. Then it's understanding the rules of the game. So sometimes these projects can be a little bit hard to engage with, or can be a little bit daunting in terms of setup. It is possible to do, and it is once you are in them, it becomes a little bit more logical. But it is helpful to find a consortia partner who's been through Innovate processes previously to be able to kind of work through that. Not vital, but useful. And then I guess more importantly is being able to kind of flex the project as the landscape shifts to provide value. So this, I think, is really important, especially when you think about SIF being quite a, you know, we talked about it kind of being an innovation funnel. Some of these can turn into kind of quite long-term projects. We didn't have the regional energy strategic planner at the start of our SIF funding process. This has come in and continues to develop as the innovation project goes on. So we are very grateful to Innovate UK, to National Grid, and all the other project partners that have allowed us to kind of move and flex slightly, not within the kind of big strategic vision, but in the kind of, you know, day-to-day activities to make sure we continue to add value through that process. And then lastly, then it's about kind of making sure we are sharing project insights as the project develops. So not waiting to the end of the project for dissemination, but making sure that we are taking best in class insights both into the project and out with the project, so that we continue to kind of add value as that goes through. So those are kind of really my reflections on kind of where we are in terms of kind of delivering existing SIF funded projects. And then I just have a couple of further slides. If I can move us on, Tony, thank you. We haven't managed to fix everything in one project, as you would be unsurprised to hear, and there are quite a few remaining obstacles. There's a lot to go at in terms of kind of remaining challenges, and I've highlighted a few here. I have just spotted an acronym. I've tried to remove them as much as possible. SDS is Spatial Development Strategy, which is a new regional kind of planning, which is coming in soon, which allows us essentially to think about some strategic planning for that integrated infrastructure development. But there are, because these are new instruments, heat network zoning, spatial development strategy, there are still some uncertainty around some of those timescales. As always, there's a challenge around capacity of local government to engage effectively. Energy is not a strategic responsibility, and therefore it's hard to be an informed counterparty in this space. And there is lots of urgencies of decisions. There's no kind of blank sheet of paper that we're working from. You know, things are happening all the time that need to be kind of taking account of. The big one for us is around interoperabilities of tools. So whilst we absolutely have a digital first approach, there are lots and lots of new exciting tools and models coming forward, but it's how we put them together in a kind of digital ecosystem, how they work well, how we make sure that the data is keeps its value. There's lots of you know, how do we kind of build trust and credibility in data if we bring it through different tools, for example. And then the big one obviously is about accounting for smart and flexible, and all the other things that the new SIF rounds are really looking to kind of help us develop further around those kind of distributed energy assets, making sure that we bring those back into the kind of wider strategic energy planning process. But I would say if we move on to the last couple of slides, then there is some really great opportunities to be looking at kind of place to be the test of kind of where we think about some of these approaches, because there is an awful lot of investment happening already. So adding in that strategic energy layer should be a really good opportunity for thinking about how we do these developments differently, how we do these smarter. So there's an awful lot of capital investment that we could potentially use to kind of hook on innovation as we go through. And I would really welcome and be enthused by the idea of making sure that we are not missing the opportunity, or not kind of losing the advantage of these kind of big capital projects going through. And just to highlight a kind of particular one where we have some political levers, if we move on to the next slide. We are particularly looking at a kind of mayoral development zone as part of a kind of wider big capital programme. Again, it's not non-statutory, so the levers are there, but they are around kind of convening power and being able to kind of bring a lot of actors into place. But this is a real concentration of exciting kind of opportunities in place. So we're very much looking to work with partners who can help us deliver that in a way that kind of meets all those strategic criteria. So I think I had one final slide in terms of reflections of kind of where places can unlock innovation. So coming back to kind of the very beginning of my presentation, where I talked about the kind of West Midlands geography and our kind of subsequent energy strategy, it's all around those kind of smart energy systems and making sure that we are promoting and looking to support the market as it brings through these solutions. We have places where technical and commercial solutions can be tested, and we would look to work with you on that to make sure that we're kind of baking those in at the earliest possible opportunity. We also have a range of relationships and other soft structures in order to kind of build the consortia quickly. So a big thanks to Energy Systems Catapult, particularly for kind of bringing this kind of cohort together. We also have our Energy Capital Collaboration Days. We have our big conference coming up on the 23rd of September, which Smart Energy Systems Cluster has its own section of. So there are lots of opportunities to kind of build and work together, whether it's for this round or kind of future innovation funding. And we have a track record of delivering really successful innovation projects. So we know that when we deliver those projects well, we have the ability to be able to influence national policy. So you could argue that a fair few elements of the kind of RESP process coming through is because we delivered the Regional Energy System Operator project as part of the Innovate UK, prospering from the energy revolution phase way back when, where we were able to gather that evidence base. If we can do that well between us, then we can potentially help to kind of knock down some of the kind of regulatory or barriers that might be stopping us from seeing this roll into business as usual. So there are some really great opportunities. This is a really exciting and well targeted funding round, and I would very much welcome future engagement with both kind of National Grid but wider actors as well as to how we can pull those kind of consortia together. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, Kate. Really interesting to hear how Energy Capital learning from the insights from current projects in making things improve in that side of things. I liked your first mural on the first page. A couple of comments that stand out on there to me: scale up, make it simple, clean tech innovation, and then one comment that everything needs to make it all work is collaboration, which is what the Smart Energy Systems Cluster is all about. So no, really interesting. So again, anybody has any questions, either put them in the chat or contact us later as such, but I'm sure we'll be able to get some answers for that. So moving on, we will now look at exploring innovation challenges and opportunities and identifying potential SIF project ideas. So really, we're just trying to get everybody involved in coming up with suggestions and ideas, and it's just going to be a little bit of a workshop on that side of things. If you would like to take a picture of the QR code, I shall hand over to Andy, who will be running that side of things.
Appreciate it, Tony. Thank you. So yeah, we're going to move into a mural session now, folks. As Tony says, the QR code is on the screen, but I think the link to the mural is also in the chat. So hopefully you can just click into that. I can see a bunch of people have started joining the mural if you wish to take part in this. And you're all appearing as random animals, which is Mural's way of things. So we've got a raccoon, a seahorse, a bee, a rabbit. We're going to see how quickly it runs out of animals to assign people. So just before, as people are sort of trickling into the mural, and I'll explain what that's going to look like, just wanted to highlight a question that Scott had asked in the chat, which was, silly question, please can you clarify if the business entity has to be within the boundary or the project has to be within the boundary of the region? So it's not a silly question at all. I think the answer is not necessarily on that. So obviously the Smart Energy Systems cluster that we're leading on behalf of the growth company is built around the capabilities in the West Midlands that we believe are, really, really strong and nationally significant. And we're trying to create a centre of gravity in the region for this sector. We've got a lot of interesting innovators and partners that are working with us within the region. But if there are innovators or other partners that are interested in the sector who have a national role, or are from beyond the region and have an interest in doing something in the West Midlands or working with the cluster, we're definitely up for that. So please don't assume, if you're beyond the footprint of the region that you're excluded from this. Do get in touch, and the contact details are available in the Q&A part of the Teams chat. So what we're going to do now is have a bit of a session around the SIF themes that Nathaniel took us through, and see if we can collectively generate some ideas. Now, thanks again to the speakers. We've had a great overview of SIF from Nathaniel. Really interesting stuff from Cara on NGED's approach to innovation, and some really relevant stuff there to these themes, and also from Kate around the region's approach to energy and the practical lessons around SIF. Now, what we're trying to do with everything we do with the cluster is bring people together to generate ideas and to try and coalesce projects, get people working on things that maybe would otherwise be missed or would be done slower or wouldn't happen at all if we didn't have this connective fabric in place. So this is very much about that. So what we're going to do through the mural effectively is step through each of the 5 SIF themes that Nathaniel took us through. We'll probably spend about 6 or 7 minutes for each theme, and give people a chance to just put some post-it notes in against the theme with project ideas, questions, thoughts on the challenge in this space, thoughts on what a potential solution might be or a project might look like. Now, you can make those post-it notes as detailed as possible, please. If you've got a really specific project idea, chuck it in there. But equally, if you've got something high level that needs more thinking doing, put it in there as well, and we'll capture it. And also on your post-it notes, please add your name if you're happy to attribute it to yourself and your organisation. So if we need to, we can follow up with people afterwards. Now, what we'll be seeking to do is cluster some of these ideas together where their kind of themes are emerging, and then we'll do some of that during the session, but we'll do that absolutely afterwards, and try and play back to people through the kind of post-webinar communication what themes have emerged, and kind of summarize those, and then ask people if they'd like to be involved in trying to coalesce a project to move forward through SIF around some of the themes that come out of this. Hopefully we'll get some good ideas that we can support through as a project and as a submission to SIF as the cluster and as the Catapult. It might be actually that some of the ideas that come through aren't relevant for SIF, but are relevant for something else, and that would be fine. That would be fine as well. We'll try and bring people into the conversation. There might be something to expand on that someone's popped in as a post-it and that sort of thing. So what I'll do is, hopefully this is kind of feeling self-explanatory, but I will just summon everybody first of all to the first challenge space here. So I can see I've got a crab, I've got a bee, I've got all sorts of 17 people following me. So this is the first challenge theme. So this first one here is challenge theme 5. We've ordered these.
Andy, before we, is everybody got in, or has anyone got any issues getting in? There's the link in the meeting chat, just in case you've got any problems. That should just take you straight through. I saw a couple of hands go up. I wondered if that was why they went up.
Okay, great. Yeah, please put anything in the chat if you're struggling. Hopefully the mural link
should be working.
will be working. Yeah.
Great stuff. Okay,
So we've
sorry, Andy.
that's all right. Thanks, Tony. We've ordered the themes in a slightly different order just to focus on the ones that we thought might be more immediately of interest to people on the call. But yeah, so this first one is Innovation Challenge 5. You can see off to the right-hand side there Nathaniel's slide from earlier, which has more information on it. But this one is about decentralized system balancing, products and services to prove the viability of autonomous local balancing and optimization of networks. So please start popping post-it notes into this Innovation Challenge 5 space. I can see a couple have started going in there already. Don't just limit this to ideas. If you're aware of existing work that's happening in the region or beyond that relates to this, you think worth capturing, pop it in there. What I've done in each of these kind of post-it note spaces as well is there are some post-it notes to grab in there. The top left one is locked, so you could copy and paste that blue post-it note if you want, or if you just double click, if you're not familiar with Mural, if you double click in the space, it'll create a post-it note that you can then type text into. So simple as that to start popping stuff in there. And we'll have a few minutes to work on this one. If you want some kind of food for thought as well, some extra stimulus, there are some questions to consider off to the left-hand side there. So I'll just read a couple of those out while we crack on with this one. What is the issue that exists today? You know, what are the specific barriers in this space? Why are grids not able to balance locally? What's driving that problem? Who experiences it? Who might we be solving a problem for? You know, what's the benefit to the network as well is obviously important to this, as Cora talked about, and to consumers. What could change? What capability, process, what service might be missing? What could make this more attractive or more viable? Who might we need to be involved? Who could own the problem or the solution? And who might we need to collaborate to make progress on this? Those are all interesting questions to think about in this as we go through all these themes. So
probably worth highlighting what are the benefits, who are the benefits to, so what network operator benefits, what are the customer benefits, what are the system benefits by deploying this particular innovation.
Thanks, Nathaniel. Please do stick your name on the end of the post-its as well if you would like to. It'll help us after the session try and bring people together who might be interested in a particular idea or a particular theme that we can try and move forward in some way. So we've got some comments here around complex billing arrangements, making the delivery model complex. So I guess that's about if we're doing balancing locally, how does that affect billing? And that's not easy to change for regulatory reasons as much as anything, I would think.
But might also be worth exploring how can billing be simplified.
Yeah.
What might need to change to enable those simplifications to be delivered?
Yeah.
Often and Innovate UK have both highlighted that they're looking for transformational innovation and transforming the bidding process, although it's outside the scope of what the network operator is responsible for.
Yeah.
But if it's required to deliver network innovation, then I think that's potentially something that Ofgem could be interested in knowing about.
Yeah. Interesting one here about battery energy storage systems, obviously important for flexibility, but operators have limited visibility of best asset health in operation. Existing management systems monitor voltage primarily, current and temperature. They're important, but can identify some internal degradation or abnormal conditions. So this can result in unexpected capacity loss, unplanned outages. It's an interesting one. We had a comment in the chat earlier from Jason from the energy storage Association, who might be interested in that one as well. That was from Nish, from Calmetrics. Still a few post-its going in on this one, which is great. So we'll give this another minute or two. Something specific here around Wolverhampton as well. Thanks for that, Oliver. Powering Penfields, looking at a smart local energy system at secondary substation level to optimize distributed energy management and mitigate constraints on the local network. Be interesting to know, Oliver, kind of what sort of stage that's at. If you have any, more thoughts on the specific challenges you're up against with that, or what would be needed or helpful to actually move that forward? Is it at a feasibility stage? Is it a bit further along than that? Is that something that we could build a specific project around? I don't know, Nathaniel, does that help with SIF projects if there's a real world location that's kind of forming the basis of a project?
Beta requires real world locations as part of the kind of trial. What we've seen before, if you take a look at there was a project that SSCN delivered in Oxfordshire, Leon neighbourhoods, where they came up against a barrier because the solution they're proposing was very much to solve a very local challenge that network operator was experiencing. So it's really important that SIF or Innovate UK and Ofgem will look to make sure that solutions can be deployed across Great Britain rather than just trying to solve very specific local issues. So I think on the powering Penfields, I think it'd be really important to consider, is this just solving a local challenge that's kind of just relevant to that area, or is that potential to deploy across multiple license areas, multiple locations, and bring nationwide benefits?
Interesting.
Andrew, do you want me to come in? It's Oliver Thomas from
Yeah,
Wolverhampton
if you've
Council.
Yeah, just for a minute, Oliver, that'd be great. Then we'll move on to the next theme.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, this project cuts across a number of the different innovation challenges, not just around the sort of like the local balancing aspect, but it's part and parcel of that broader energy system that we're looking at. The reason why we chose the secondary substation level at this here was really just to simplify the modelling that we were doing. So we're really in the throes of the techno-economic aspect of this, and the outputs of that modelling are going to be delivered in the coming weeks. Where we're at now is really how we take that to the next stage. So to answer the initial question, Andrew, about whether or not a conversation or a follow-up on how we do that, I think that would be really valuable for us to see what the opportunity could be through SIF or whatever it might be, just to sort of think through in a little bit more detail about what it might mean. The modelling aspects are basically just covering a few sort of future energy scenarios that we've identified and working out essentially what's the best for simple return on investment, but obviously depending on which scenario we go with will depend on obviously the business model at the other end of that as well, and then ultimately who pays for it and then who benefits. So there's a number of different sort of caveats to it, but the broad principle of it remains the same. So the idea is that it's not necessarily specific to Penfields, it's just that's the area that we chose, and therefore it could ultimately be scalable to other areas. But just to go back to Kate's point earlier from her presentation, is that in Wolverhampton, in Birmingham, in the Black Country, and the rest of the West Midlands proper, is that we're really constrained for space, and the only way that we get any of this stuff into our cities and towns is by utilising the assets that are already there. So roof spaces, like small community patches where we might be able to put some localised battery storage, community buildings, this, that and the other, and that's a really complex sort of relationship between all of those different things. So we're just really keen to see how we could make something work that could benefit the rest of the region as well and other places like it.
Great. That's really helpful, Ollie. Thank you. I mean, it'd be good to follow up with you on that one afterwards, and it sounds like you're at the stage where starting to think about the solutions and the business models is going to be really relevant. So it could be a really good time to get some kind of innovators engaged as well and think about their products and services that might be fitting. So
Perfect.
that's
Yeah.
exactly the sort of thing we want to try and do. Brilliant. Thank you for that.
Lovely. Cheers.
Right, I think that one's dried up a little bit. So we'll do some summarizing of that after this session, but thank you for your comments on that one. I'm just going to move people on to the second theme here, which we've picked as Innovation Challenge 3. So this one is about the domestic setting, enabling instant plug-and-play connections of domestic energy devices and appliances by 2032. So this is all about, making low carbon energy technologies plug and play in households and enabling households to better use effectively smart devices that enable flexibility, and to do that much more quickly and instantly. This does help with your system balancing and affordability, but it's more about the plug and play capability of domestic technologies. So yeah, same again, folks. Have to think about any ideas, challenges, existing work, specific projects that you might want to try and get moving in this space. This could be about electric vehicle technologies, heat pumps, batteries, solar technologies, kind of management systems, anything in that space. See what's coming through on this one. The next thing we'll move on to after this will be around sites. It'll be more about strategic industrial sites. Kind of Kate referenced some of that. It's in the region in terms of development, development sites, enterprise zones, that sort of thing that could provide a really interesting opportunity for that one as well. But for now, let's focus on this this domestic challenge. People have thoughts on this one. We will leave the mural open as well for a while after this session, so you'll be able to access it if you are having problems at the moment as well. Or hopefully we can solve those offline, and then you can jump into the mural, at some point in the next week maybe, and add some thoughts if you haven't had the chance to during the session today. And do feel free to go back and add to the previous theme if other thoughts arise as well.
And do we have a hand from Medban raised on carbon laces?
Okay. Is that in the teams? Yeah, go for it. Feel free to jump in.
Hi, Andrew. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Certainly can.
Yeah. So I had just put a post-it in the previous challenge, and I don't know what your thoughts are on that, because I think the first thing is that it was, we delivered place-based flexibility. So that was, and there was a paper that came out, and Energy Systems Catapult actually helped us. And
Great.
And John is, kind of helping us to, kind of look for the next level of SIF and how to meander through. And I was just interested to get your thoughts. We had a paper that was published. Desna's really liked the paper, and it kind of goes into quite details of how and what and all that. So yeah.
Oh, that sounds really interesting. So are you trying to progress a SIF alpha?
We're looking to collaborate and on SIF.
Okay.
And I think what we bring to the table is that we already had the flexibility piece, delivered. And so we're looking to collaborate further. We tested it with MISO, and so hence, looking at challenge 5.
Okay. And what do you need? What sort of partner would you need to move something forward?
I think just as diverse as possible. So diverse types of, kind of loads, places, anything, because you want to just throw stuff onto the platform and see how, we're able to deliver on a larger scale. So
Okay.
hence, if you're looking at depots, it would be quite an interesting one. It just builds on the story of what we did previously.
Okay. Did you think this relates to the other point that was put in there around depots?
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I said. And so really open, and also key is our platform is not supplier, it's all supplier DNO agnostic. It runs for every single asset in the UK. So I think that's quite relevant to, proving scale as well as repeatability.
Okay, great. That sounds like something we should follow up on, Maribel. I'm not sure who put the post in about the depots. It would be helpful if whoever put that in could go back and add the name to that. Or was that you as well?
Yeah, I didn't put the one on the depots, but I put my name and my company,
Yeah.
just that link. So that's why I'm saying that, possibly if you guys are interested, it might be a good conversation to follow up on, to pick up, because already got the credibility, already established the paper, and it's gone through one of the best journals. So it just took 1.5 years, but that's a side story.
Right, okay. No, that sounds good. Well, Jamie's just saying it was him that put the post it in around depots, so maybe we can facilitate a conversation around this afterwards.
Sure.
As well.
I
Maybe
will.
some-
Thank you.
Yeah, okay, brilliant. Thank you. That's good. These are good connections to make. It's the sort of thing we're trying to do here, so that's great.
It's probably also worth announcing that the consumer-led flexibility for the Clean Energy Superpower Mission competition is still open. I think there's 2 weeks left, applications by 26th of August. And so any kind of flex-related innovation might also be suitable for this competition. So sort of recommend taking a look, and I'll just put the link in the chat to that.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Nathaniel. Yeah.
Thanks.
It looks like the space for some reason isn't locked properly in this section of the mural, so I'm just going to move that out of the way because it looks like it's causing problems for people to add post-it notes in. So I'm just going to get that moved out of the way. Should still be rather obvious where the space is there. It should be a bit easier if you're trying to add post-it notes. It's a good point been put in here about the domestic sort of theme that WMCA has a big grant-funded retrofit program, around 200 million over 3 years, primarily domestic, developing opportunities for able-to-pay market of similar value, which could potentially provide a test bed for some innovative initiatives. I think that's a really great opportunity. So, yeah, I mean, if there are innovators here with domestic solutions, particularly that relate to this SIF theme around plug and play type technologies, it could be that there's a really helpful connection to be made here to the West Midlands Combined Authorities retrofit program as a test bed for those sorts of solutions, and possibly for a kind of partner in a SIF bid if that's appropriate. I'm not wishing to commit the Combined Authority to something, of course. Great, okay. Some interesting stuff going in here on challenges as well that relate to this. Age and suitability of infrastructure, curtailment thresholds, capacity at substation, secondary substation level.
Those all look to be quite linked on what can your infrastructure at the low voltage network provide, and I assume how might you kind of increase that capacity or understand those limits when the DNO makes decisions on how many LCTs can be installed within that particular network.
This is an interesting point about networked heat pumps as well. I mean, electrical efficiency and grid load can be changed by moving heat onto or away from the network using storage facilities. Yeah, it'd be interesting to understand whether I don't know if the Combined Authority are considering networked heat pumps as part of the retrofit program.
Is that the Kenza type solution that we've seen, where there's a low temperature heat network and like a small shoebox heat pump that's installed within the home?
Yep.
Or is this looking at a different solution with more traditional air source or ground source heat pumps?
I guess it could be either, Nathaniel, but my mind went to that kind of networked, the Kenza model. Yeah. I don't know, Kate. Do you want to come in on that at all? If you're still there.
Yeah, I am here. Yeah, I've tried to add a comment to it, but I'll say it directly. Yeah, we're really interested in this solution. I think there is we have been doing some interesting work with Nesta around clean heat zoning. And so where we think different heat solutions might be applicable in different areas. We're interested in the kind of really large scale heat network solutions, but also the kind of hyper-local neighbourhood scale stuff and how they interact together. So we very much welcome some focus into this area. And we have already started thinking about this around the kind of Tyseley area. But yeah, it's a real opportunity that we would like to explore further.
Great. Thanks, Kate. So yeah, if anyone, we'll summarise that as a theme from the feedback from this session. But if anybody is interested in that, please add a post-it note next to the big circular yellow one and the second one that we're looking at now. And we'll try and bring people together around that. This is great, folks. I can see we've still got 34 people in the session. Everything we're trying to do here is about bringing people together and try and get ideas sparking and connections sparking that wouldn't otherwise. So please, if you have got thoughts or ideas, put them in the Teams chat or add post-its into the mural, even if it's just seconding something someone's already said. We can start to capture things that multiple people are interested in. Just pop your name and your organization down on a post-it. This is really good stuff.
There's a post-it about challenge three-phase connections. So would it be worth just exploring that a little bit further? Should every home have a three-phase connection, or can single-phase connections, which is the current design that we have for residential properties, is that not suitable for low carbon technology connections? I've just been interested to sort of explore that a little bit further.
Yeah, whoever's put that one in, please come off mute if you want to expand on that at all.
That was me again, and it's related in part really to the first point at the top, and then the challenge around the age and suitability of the infrastructure under the ground, and a lot of it is very old, and the argument is whether or not, if you're digging up the road and replacing it all with three-phase supply, is then do you have to then basically upgrade every single home to be able to get the benefits of all those low carbon technologies as well? And the cost of that being built into whatever the wider social costs are going to be. To do that on a large scale seems like quite a big challenge, particularly for homes that have got much greater energy demands than sort of smaller terrace streets.
Interesting stuff. Thanks for that.
Got a hand up from Stephen Roberts from Enged.
Yeah, go for it, Steve.
Yeah, you're right. That's an interesting thing, Ollie, to explore. We've got policies where new builds are going to get the option for it, but we'll fuse them at single phase, but the three-phase cable's connected. But when we're looking at, the old things for retrofits and other states and that, what does that mean in practice? And these are questions our secondary enforcement team are always looking at. But There's a big thing coming forward for AD3 as well, like with the unlooping challenge as well, like in the part like Ofgem wanting us to be more proactive with unlooping. But I suppose it loops into like the innovation space, is what, you know, can peaks be shifted and loads balanced and all that other stuff. But well, I don't know that the full answer. That these are topics that are being looked at as well. But I'd certainly value a future discussion. And even though I'm envisioning Cara to be leading in this space, in this group, and that probably going forward next she's joined the company, but I'm definitely going to be around. So I just wanted to flag that.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen.
If you've got three-phase connections coming into the home, and then I think as kind of Stephen mentioned, that you can fuse them at one phase, so that therefore minimizing the impact on the residential wiring, not having to replace internal fuse boards. But that then might also give participants the option to install a three-phase charger, which could be installed separately to their existing consumer unit, or maybe there's potential innovation in designing a device that goes in between the consumer unit and the three-phase terminal, which changes the phase that the home is on to phase balance.
Right.
I know that kind of sometimes some streets can be out of balance, and that balance can change throughout the day as loads across that street change, and so therefore we could potentially, there's an interesting opportunity there to explore is if every home has a three-phase connection but only needs a single phase supply, and you've got the three-phase terminal at the building, is there something interesting, a power electronics solution that you could deploy that could help optimize that low voltage network?
Right.
Thanks, Nathaniel. Maybe that's something we can, follow up on. I think I'll move on to the next theme, folks, as well. Do go back and add stuff if it crops up, but let's move on to our third one, which is Innovation Challenge 1. So this is a bit of a change. Everybody here. So this is about major new strategic industrial sites can be energized and operational within 6 months by 2033, which is frighteningly not that long away, really, is it, when you think about it? So this is about radically reducing the time it takes to connect and energize major industrial developments, such as data centers, which get a lot of talk at the minute. Advanced manufacturing facilities, of which there's a lot in the West Midlands. Hydrogen production sites, and other strategically important economic assets. So, think your big development zones, energy hungry manufacturing, or data centers that are important for job creation in the region, but take a lot of energy. So the ambition here is for energy networks to move from today's lengthy connection processes to a future where these sorts of industrial sites can become operational within 6 months of requesting a connection. So, this is all about supporting economic growth and industrial decarbonisation and inward investment into the country. There's an emphasis here on cross-vector planning and delivery, ensuring sites receive integrated energy solutions. So, thinking about whole system solutions and electricity networks, gas and hydrogen infrastructure, industrial heat requirements, water and wastewater, distributed generation and storage. Thinking about those things in the round as an integrated solution, rather than planning for an electrical connection, planning for a gas connection, individually, what can be done here. It feels to me like a space that's quite ripe for discovery, particularly given what Kate was saying earlier about the development zones, the investment zones within the West Midlands being really important for the region. And you've kind of got this coming together of those investment zones being really important for the regional economy, but also the constrained network in the region. And those two things are obviously in tension. So how can the region overcome some of those challenges and help some of these sites come online quicker? Could be about planning, could be about integrated solutions, could be about process, as well. David, I can see you've put a comment in here. It must be you about Tisley, I think. I can see your cursor hovering around it. I don't know if you want to come off mute at all and just talk to anything around Tisley that's relevant to this. Any opportunities?
Good. Sorry, yeah, I've not put my name on it. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, yep.
Okay. Yeah, just really interesting hearing conversations earlier, sparking a bunch of ideas. So I think there's people from Hemico on the call here. So I think opportunity around heat is still there, and I know they potentially have funding, as do others. SEC being nearby, I think that their data centers have been in touch with us in the past about energy assets connecting to them. So thinking of that being the sort of almost the anchor to start rolling out maybe heat and power microgrid for the area. Obviously between us and them, there's also lots of other either developing sites or sites that could come forward in the future. So it feels like priming it with a project like this could be really exciting. I was going to list other partners who I know would be interested. I know National Gas, they've looked at feasibility studies around hydrogen networks on TEP, but also the wider area. So I think it'd be interesting if a project like this could draw them in. Hygen are talking about scaling up hydrogen production, and they're interested in means of getting cheaper power to be able to increase their hydrogen production by sort of tenfold. And then also thinking about how that might play into a wider hydrogen network, I think will be exciting. And then also people like, I think Voltempa could be on the call, but we're talking about kind of charging infrastructure for HGVs on our site, but things like microgrids connecting around the wider area, which also link to that transport piece, I think would be really interesting. We've also been in touch with a company called Amoresco who are talking about coming to an area like this and helping to put in power infrastructure. So I'll keep on putting thoughts down, but that my slide there was just to sort of kick things off.
That's really helpful. Thanks, David. Yeah, please do put some of those ideas down there. They sound really relevant. Some other stuff going in here as well. Heat distribution between domestic and non-domestic sources can benefit from existing simple, robust, and mature deployment technologies. Thank you for that, Kamal. Is that something, Kamal, that you think there's a kind of project in? You know, what's needed? Does that need to be validated? Does it need to be demonstrated? How do we? I don't know if you want to come off mute and expand on that one a little bit.
Yeah,
yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, from our point of view, this the idea that you see there contains bits of jigsaw puzzle pieces, which are definitely, you know, well past demonstrator level, either in this country or around the world somewhere. And although that sounds like a a rag bag of maybe technologies or approaches or methodologies, that kind of lends itself, in a flexible way to approaching a particular place where you might want to consider a particular set of circumstances and conditions that currently exist, and you're not quite sure how they're going to change over time, but that you do know how to make a start and begin connecting things together. And as you develop that, then the system efficiency just improves. And so I'm talking about system interaction between existing project-based systems, whether they're building level, campus level, network level. There'll always be some kind of surplus or deficit of heat demand, whether it's a cooling load or a heating load. And if you start balancing those out, then you get those greater efficiencies that's greater than the sum of the individual parts. So it's a principle and it's an approach. And yes, it's been, you can point to different parts of it and then assemble those in a particular area.
Interesting. Thank you for that.
And then most of you are thinking about kind of how does the role of network operator need to change to enable that to happen? Is that, or is there another organization that interacts with the gas electricity network operators in order to deliver that? Because I think everyone has the ambition to do sort of whole systems planning, and there's lots of benefits that you can bring by kind of bringing together heat networks, or heat supply, heat demand. But then sometimes you reach the barrier that gas network operators distribute methane, electricity network operators distribute electrons, and there is a gap on how do you make whole systems, kind of planning whole systems, innovation or deployment work when the remit of the network operators is potentially quite narrow.
And Nathaniel, what do you think about these two? There's two post-its up at the top here on this section. The orange one and the blue one. They're both sort of process-based. I think one's about multi-let estate, everyone applying for their own connection separately, and then the one on the right is kind of about leased sites and connections being measured. A phase of that doesn't happen on land. The DNO, it happens on land the DNO can't see. So these feel sort of, they're different issues, but they're related around kind of process for applying for connections, I suppose.
Yeah, and should we be incentivizing those 10 units to collaborate with each other and have one joint connection request? Is there a different model? Oh, sorry.
No, go on. I think that's right. Yeah. It sounds like it's something that would be an interesting discovery project, maybe.
Yes.
I don't know who put that one in. It would be useful if again you could add your name to the to that post there, and we can potentially follow up on that one. Or on both of those. Great.
And on the green post note, I don't know the answer to the question of what's the current baseline, including legals, and who holds that number. I know that network operators have a guaranteed standard of performance that they need to meet during the initial stages of the connection request when they provide quotes, but then there's lots of kind of breakpoints that make the clock stop when information gets returned to different parties or back to other parties, but I'm not.
Right. Yeah, okay. These are all things we can maybe explore in a bit more detail offline, but that's really helpful. Good on you. These people are putting circular post-it notes in, showing off their mural chops. Very impressive. I'm conscious of the time, folks, and I think it's probably the last two themes maybe have slightly less relevance, but that might not be the case. So I do want to move us through the next two and spend a little bit of time on those. So, you know, feel free to keep adding post-its to the previous ones if they're still in your mind, though. But for those who are ready to move on to the next one, I won't summon people this time, just in case I'm dragging you away from still putting post-its on, because I can see there are one or two dropping in. The next one down is Innovation Challenge 4. So this is about near zero interruptions via autonomous reconfiguring and islanding of any section of the network by 2038. So we had a couple of questions in the chat previously about this, and the term you used on your slide, Nathaniel, is self-healing, a self-healing network, and you kind of used the example of storms. So the system automatically detecting and responding to and recovering from faults, cyber incidents, or extreme weather or other disruptions with no customer impact. So this is all about resilience, really, and the system being able to temporarily operate independently through a kind of islanded approach. Local generation, battery storage, decentralized gas assets potentially. So yeah, any thoughts on this one? Be really welcome.
And in the comments, there were lots of great questions that were proposed around how do you really synchronize. So, you know, I've been a comment around who's responsible for the frequency within that island. Is at the moment the NESO are responsible for maintaining frequency within the statutory limits. But if you were to move to a model where you create specific islands, should NESO still have responsibility when potentially they then might have a visibility question, or do we need to define kind of roles and responsibilities across the different organisations if islanding were to become business as usual?
This sort of feels like it's at the discovery end as an issue, Nathaniel. I don't know if that's a fair assessment, but it feels like the sort of thing where you'd be looking into some of those questions and thinking about how this would work in practical terms. Is that fair?
Yeah, and the timeline also suggests that we're more nascent stage. So this particular challenge, that the date is set to by 2038 rather than 2032, which is the case for challenge 3 around instant plug and play connection. So I think that it's recognised that it's going to take longer to deliver. There needs to be more groundwork in place, and there's also a interdependency with challenge 5. So if you are going to run islanded networks, then those networks will need to balance and need to match supply and demand. And local balancing could be a solution that then enables a network to be islanded. This challenge could also think about, are we at the level of, say, an industrial cluster or an industrial park, rather than a country level? So if there's a industrial site that's got a number of assets across it, could that run in island mode and be an offer whoever owns the land of that site? Of course, I recognise there's lots of different ownership models of industrial areas, but if you've got a common landowner, could there be a common infrastructure operator for that industrial site that then kind of enhances the resilience for those customers?
Would this be, I'm just thinking back to the point Kate was making before about the investment zones and development sites in the West Midlands. Would it be appropriate to look at one of those as a test case in some way through some sort of discovery project and think about, in the circumstances that there was a disruption on this particular site, given that it's an archetype of some sort for that's of wider relevance, what would a solution need to look like for this at different levels? Totally repowering it, keeping some of the lights on, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think there's multiple levels of what the solution needs to look like. You have the hardware, so what hardware do you need in the substations that can desynchronize, make sure that voltage and frequency are maintained within that island, and then how do you resynchronize back to the main grid once the disruption has passed? So you then have a regulatory solution that's needed. So if the local network operator is regulated to provide a certain service in that area, and that site is then be islanded, does that need to be kind of, those regulatory responsibilities need to be passed on to another organization that's managing the island, or does that still remain a responsibility of the distribution network operator? You then have the control kind of side of it too. If it's which control room does the island data feed into? Does it remain as part of the same control room, or when you island, do you change control rooms? So I think there's probably lots to explore here, and lots to also think, well, are there benefits, or are we just adding complexity to the network? Which there has to be a good reason for why you might want to island, and at the moment that reason is based on resilience, suggesting that you would island when the network that you're connected to is experiencing a challenge or an outage.
Yep. Great. Okay. don't know if somebody was wanting to come in on that one. Please do if you wish to. No problem. We've got about 5 minutes left, folks. So I think we're probably not going to have time to get onto the last theme in any substantive way. I'll just quickly introduce it now. I mean, it is about faster network build and cheaper network build and maintenance. So, you know, this is more about the actual physical network and getting it built quicker and cheaper and maintaining it. Yeah, you know, rapid growth of so that the network can accommodate what we expect to happen in terms of increasing electrification effectively. Rapid growth of renewable generation, heat and transport, electrification, industrial electricity demand, etc. So it is related to some of the other themes, particularly the industrial site one that we've just been discussing. So yeah, do feel free to go and pop some posts in that one as well. I think I'll just start to try and sum up here as people still pop post-its in. And what I would suggest as well is, you know, the webinar kind of will end at 12 o'clock in a few minutes, but the mural isn't going anywhere. So please keep keep working in this immediately after the call. And then, as I say, over about the next week or so, we'll leave it open and not do too much to it so people can add stuff in there. But yeah, in the meantime, just by way of sort of summing this up, I think we've got some really good ideas coming through in the mural here, particularly around the first two or three. Actually, to be fair, all of them have got some good stuff in there. I think this is a really good example of what we're trying to do through the cluster is, as I said earlier, just get people together, create a bit of space for collective thought, and a bit of knocking around of ideas, sharing of ideas, and trying to bring people together around them and connect people around them. You know, it doesn't have to be a lot of time, but it just creates a bit of space that we wouldn't otherwise have. So getting your names on those post-it notes is really helpful. What we'll be doing is, you know, obviously the mural's there for people to go back and look at, but we'll be trying to draw out of this the kind of themes or ideas that have come through that we think are most prominent or potentially most kind of relevant and viable for a SIF project. And we'll be resharing those back to the attendee list for the webinar and asking for people to you know, to come back to us with which of them they'd like to be directly involved with. I think you know, do that now if you want. If there's anything that we've discussed that has stood out to you, you know, put sort of express an interest in the Teams chat. Yeah, Carthy, definitely contact details if you don't mind putting them on a post-it note as well would help. I think we'll have people's details generally through the sign-ups to the webinar, but that would make it easier to have it to hand. But yeah, you know, express an interest in the Teams chat, put a post-it note with your contact details on it. And I think, as we said earlier in the session as well, you know, there's contact details for Samaya in the Q&A section of the Teams chat and on the slides if you want to be more actively involved in the cluster on an ongoing basis. Tony shared the list of our other upcoming events at the top of the session, and we also have a mailing list where we're sharing regularly kind of funding opportunities that are emerging, news that's coming out that people might be interested in, and that sort of thing. So it's a useful kind of list to be involved in going forward. So definitely, Oliver, thank you for that. We'll pick up your contact details. But yeah, with all that said, please keep working on the mural. But thanks again to all of our speakers, to Tony for kicking us off, Nathaniel, Cara, and Kate, and everyone else who's kind of contributed, added questions and comments into the chat. Really appreciate it. I hope you're all not melting like an overheated single phase connection today, because it's getting really hot now that it's midday. But thank you for joining. And yeah, keep in touch. And Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. We'll dial off the Teams call now, but keep working on the mural. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks all.
Thanks,
Cheers.
All right, take care.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.